Welcome. I am so glad you're here this morning because I will be talking to Dr. Jacqueline Schoemaker-Holmes. And I know her as the founder of Mummy Voices, but she wears many hats. And I was actually trying to figure out how I was going to describe her because she's difficult to describe. And so I thought I would use her own words, which are that she is a mother, a poet, a truth warrior, and a motherhood disruptor. To me, the one thread that connects all of her work together is her desire to empower and help women connect to one another and to resources. And so I'm really happy and excited to be chatting with you today, Jackie. Welcome so much.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be here, and a conversation with you is always a pleasure.
So I was doing some digging before because I already know you and we've chatted before, and I was like, oh, I need to dig and find out as much as I can. And I realized that your background is in sociology. And so my first question is, what drew you to sociology as an area of study?
Oh, that is such a that is such a great question, and I feel like it has a massive answer that I will try to condense.
It just made
Um,
sense. It made sense when I said it.
um, let's see. I went to university a year ahead of my peers, and that wasn't really expected or planned. It's just that I was able to do things a little bit faster, right? So I'm 18, and it's like you have to go to university now. And this is when there was still OAC and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't really see that coming. My guidance counselor was just like, you better go to the university fair and figure out where you're going. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And so I think I can't even remember what I can't even remember what I actually, it was sociology that I applied for at a bunch of different universities. And then I chose Carleton. And I think in my first semester, second semester, I switched to anthropology.
Mm.
And I finished a double major in anthropology and women's studies. And that really suited my interests and tastes then. Although as I moved into graduate school and things like that, my work became much more sociological. And so I did a master's degree in social anthropology. And then by the time I hit my PhD, I was a full-blown sociologist. So I have just always been very, very interested in people and in the social world. And my interest in social justice, equality, feminism, women's and marginalized people's rights. It's just a really, really natural fit for me.
Yeah, it makes so much sense. When I read that you had studied sociology, I thought that makes so much sense because of all of the different things that you've done, all of the different projects you've undertaken. Um, they do all fit into that one umbrella. And I wondered, how did this lens of sociology, anthropology, women's studies, how did it impact your way of perceiving the experience of motherhood?
Such a great question again. What's interesting is I think that as academics, we think we understand our subject matter. We think that we get it, like on a really fundamental level.
Yes.
I've studied this topic, sort of, gender equality, the institution of motherhood, the institution of marriage, gendered social dynamics, for as long as I can remember. And it has been my experience of life, but very theoretically. And so when I became a mother, it hit me in the face in a way that I could not think myself through.
Mm.
And that was a very destabilizing thing for me, because I have always been able to analyze and think my way through everything, or research my way through everything. And motherhood just really, really threw me for a loop. And all of the things that I thought that I knew, you know, I just didn't like when I experienced, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yes, of course. And so what is that where you decided to start your blog? Where was the incentive to start your blog?
Actually, it was born out of a real desire to get out of the thicket of shame that I was in when it came to my experience of motherhood early on. So, what was really interesting about my background is that it informed my experience in this way, where I was like, I know that it's a social construction that women are naturally nurturing and mothering and all that kind of thing, but emotionally I could not make sense of it. I was like, I don't feel the way that I'm supposed to feel about this baby.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there has to be something fundamentally wrong with me, right? I am defective, I am deficient. I I can't do what I'm supposed to do with this baby, right? And it didn't help that I was struggling with breastfeeding and all that kind of thing. So because I was mired in, clinical postpartum depression and anxiety, um, it was it was just really difficult to make sense of my experience, especially in the context of how you're supposed to feel as a mother, right? So everyone was telling me, isn't this the most magical thing that's ever happened to you? And I was like, this is actually the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And none of it made any sense, right? So I read the book Lactivism. And unfortunately, I can't think of the woman's name right now, but she's a professor at the University of Toronto. And she wrote this beautiful book, and it spoke so eloquently and explicitly to my experience struggling with breastfeeding and the pressure, both internal and external, that I experienced. That I totally wrote her a fangirl letter. I have never done this before. I read the introduction. I found her email online. I wrote her a fangirl letter. And I basically said, like, thank you for speaking to my experience. Thank you for making, for making everything that's felt so unbelievably messed up normal in some way. And she was really gracious and all that kind of thing. And that's what got the ball rolling. Because I was like, if this book has had such an impact on me, then my story could have this kind of impact on one woman, and that's all that matters. And that's when I started the blog, even though I was still deep in the shame pit. So,
But I think it's important that you were deep in the shame pit, because then you could write from there. It's harder in retrospect to be like, oh, I'll write about how it felt, because you're not in it anymore. There's something raw about being in it and writing about it that, I don't know, it's almost like we get some kind of amnesia when we're past it. You just can't get into that feeling again.
mhm.
And I think because the people who need to hear what you have to say, they need to feel you there when they're reading it. So I think it was perfect that you started it at that time. And did your voice change over time as you were writing?
Yes, yeah, dramatically. I think that if you go and read my blog now, a blog that I don't even update anymore because I've basically transitioned completely onto social media when it comes to, microblogging and all that kind of thing. Um, that is just sort of like a case study in postpartum depression and the experience of it and coming to terms with it, right? Coming to terms with the fact that I feel this way and it's
Mhm.
okay. And it doesn't have anything to do with me being a monster, and it doesn't have anything to do with how I feel about my daughter, right?
Right.
And so that's really, like, I haven't even gone back and read it, right? So it's about 3 years ago that I wrote it, and I don't know, how I would feel going back and reading it, but I know that it was the starting point of me honing my voice and honing a definition of motherhood that I could comfortably inhabit.
Yes. Yeah, I look back to March 2nd, 2017. That's as far back as I could find. Does that sound like?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So do you find, when I was asking about your voice, do you find that you became more daring or more open and vulnerable over time, or how did your voice change over time as you were writing?
Well, I think at first I was very tentative, right? Because I was still grappling internally with this idea that I was a horrible person, right? Because my experience was so diametrically opposed to everything that everyone was constructing around me, right?
Yeah.
So I say that very deliberately because I don't pretend that that is the truth of the experience of motherhood, but women are very good at saying what you're supposed to say when it comes to having a child. Because what I realized, and this has to do with my voice, is that the more I articulated my experience, the more uncomfortable people around me got,
Mm,
right? And so, you know, in counseling at the time, I remember my counselor saying, if you were going to say these things, okay, if you were going to say these things that are against the very notion of what it means to be a mother, then you have to be ready for that kind of pushback. And so I really took that on because I was like, she's right. I cannot articulate that which is unspoken and then feel like a wounded animal every time somebody says, you can't say that. Do you know what
wow.
I'm saying?
That's a huge, I cannot believe somebody said that to you as a therapist, that somebody just basically told you to shut up about how you were feeling.
Well, no,
That's,
not really. See, I might be saying it too directly, but what she was trying to say is you have to emotionally protect yourself. If you are not in a place where you can hear that people don't like you saying that, right?
right. Okay. Yeah.
Then please don't say it. Wait until you're in a place where when you speak the unspeakable, you can take whatever comes back.
I don't agree with that. I don't, I disagree. I will agree to
Okay.
disagree because there should be a space for you to say that. There shouldn't be
Oh, of
sort
course.
of like, let's just make sure you're bulletproof because you're going to get attacked. Like that doesn't sound like a fair trade-off. Like, you get to say what you want to say. Just make sure you can take, like, the shrapnel for what you've just said. I don't know. That
I
doesn't sit well with me.
I hear you and I appreciate what you're saying. I think I think I think what she was trying to illustrate was like you in some instances you may be too emotionally vulnerable
Mhm.
when you say these things because you don't know what's going to come back. You don't know what kind of reaction you're going to get. And right now, you can't really deal with that negative reaction.
So, what's the worst thing somebody has ever said to you?
Oh, I mean, I'm on social media. Like, where do I start?
3 hours later, and then.
And then, um, I think that one of the most painful things was someone saying that they felt bad for my daughter.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really sad.
Yeah, because that's really buying into this notion that my articulating a dissatisfaction with the cult of motherhood, right, somehow disadvantages my daughter
Right. Yes.
because I don't just shut up and take it and act like a servant,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And embody this selfless whatever maid, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That my daughter is going to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then she'll see you as a selfless maid, and that's what she'll become. She'll become a selfless maid as well. So, how are you? How are you helping her by showing that? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. Except to those who really want to toe the line when it comes to the status quo of motherhood, right? I'm very, very deliberate. You know, as you said, when I call myself a motherhood disruptor, like I'm not just talking shit. Like we are going to talk about these things and we're going to speak the unspoken and we're going to speak our truth, because if you want to stay sane and alive in this motherhood game, and I mean that very literally, if
Yes.
you want to stay sane and alive, then you need to speak your truth and you need to not put yourself last and you need to not construct yourself like, you know, you are the planet that circles the, you know, earth of your, or the sun of your family. You know what I'm saying? Like you are the center, and so many women do not occupy and inhabit that role because they're told that that's not their place.
Yeah. Yes. So in that moment, in that space, in that time, um, what was the most helpful thing that anyone said or did?
Mm, great question. Um, it was to trust myself. And I think all mothers come to that on some level, right? Like I think eventually, whether it's over time, whether your child gets more independent, whether whatever, you just start to sort of trust yourself. You're like, if I don't, I will be in a panic state for really the rest of my life, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So it was trusting myself. It was allowing myself to make the decisions that I needed to make in order to survive, like stopping breastfeeding, like asking for help, like speaking my feelings. Yeah, and just being really honest, even when people didn't want to hear it or when it was inconvenient.
Yeah. Especially when it's inconvenient. So, how did you transition from Eating Her Young, your blog, to Mummy Voices, which was your How I Got to Know You, your Facebook group, your private Facebook group? How did you transition?
It's really just that I created the community that I needed. It didn't exist. Moms groups on social media are terrible, just like period. Um, they're full of judgment and really gross stuff. And so I lived in that world for a bit, and I'm talking about, you know, these local groups where like everybody posts everything from like here sort of reusable diapers to my husband's an asshole. You know what I mean? Like it's this whole range of like, um, and I tried that world for a while, and I was just like, this is terrible. Like, this is a terrible place, and I don't want to be here. Um, and so I just realized like I can create a space, and maybe well, not maybe, I knew at this point, right? I had been blogging long enough to know that there were people who kept stepping forward and saying, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. So I was like, I know I have enough. I know I can get 10 people in this group. We might as well just chit chat.
Yes.
And then it grew, and I'm very proud that it's at like 1.8 thousand people, you know.
Amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And so this group kind of took off and has grown, and you have someone who is monitoring at this point um, the conversation and helping to answer questions on voices.
Well, actually, there's four of us. So there's four
Okay.
admins, and we all monitor. We all are there to respond, to provide resources, to provide comfort. We don't provide advice unless that's asked for, and
Mhm.
that's an explicit kind of rule of Mummy Voices.
Mm.
We mediate where there is, where there are problems, which are very few and far between, because this community is very proud of itself and very proud of the way that it openly talks about really difficult subjects, without that kind of, mudslinging and name calling and just gross stuff you see everywhere else. And I am very, very proud of our community for that. And I know that everyone in it is also proud of their ability to do that.
Yeah, it's a great community because it's safe and you can ask. Like, I like sometimes I'll see stuff come up and I'm thinking, I can't believe this is such a cool conversation. Like, it's something that you would never see anywhere else. You know, I can't think of an example right now, but something, a topic that is so not like your regular mommy group. And it's just like, wow, we're having this conversation. This is so cool.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I really appreciate that, because also we're not strictly a mommy group. We have at least two dads in there. There are trans folks. It's yes, largely populated by by moms, but we have diversity in there, and that really lends to the conversation.
And I love to, some women have grown children and some have teenagers. It's not just little kids, because a lot of mummy groups, their kids are 5 and under, and it's the same topics. And so if your kids are older, like mine are 12 and 15,
Mhm.
then they are sleeping, and my problem is getting them up, like not sleeping anymore. So you kind of don't really fit anymore. But in your group, I find there's such a variety in the age of the children, that if you put something on there, there will be people who are like, oh my gosh, yes, I have teenagers too, or preteens, or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think because we don't emphasize advice, do you know what I mean? Then we don't get that same kind of like, oh, what do I do if, this one's not sleeping? Or what do I do if, my milk isn't coming in, or whatever? Not that there isn't a place for that, there is, but we're just not that kind of community. We're about non-judgmental support, and that's what we do for and with each other.
Yes, and it's beautiful. It's beautifully done. So what was the pandemic like? I know that you have people posting every day and responding to each other. What were the main things that you saw come up during the pandemic?
That's a great question. And it actually speaks to sort of how Eating Her Young evolved into Mummy Voices, evolved into my business.
Okay.
Okay. So, so what happened is that I had been supporting moms in that arena for over a year, almost two. I had started to get some other admins on board to help, spread out the work as the community grew larger.
Mm.
And I realized that it was the work that I wanted to do. Right. I had been doing it already. And if there was any way to transition it into my full-time, everyday job, then I was going to figure out how to do it. And so that's what I did a year ago. And I'm really proud of that. And so when I think about what comes up in Mummy Voices, I also think about what comes up at Empowerment for Resilience, which is my business account, which is on Facebook and Instagram. And it's really just this sense of overwhelm, this sense of, why does everything fall on the shoulders of women? Why are these expectations out of control? Um, why do I feel like I have to meet all of them like some kind of superwoman? And then why do I feel so shitty all the time? Right? So, not giving ourselves the grace and space to say, this is really difficult. We are being asked to do far too much. And no one's acknowledging how hard it is, which is motherhood writ large. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's really been a lot of what I've been seeing, right? Like how do I manage all these expectations while there is the underlying anxiety of a global pandemic,
Mhm.
and not being able to do, normal things, and not being able to have the kind of social connection that women and mothers need in order to be able to raise children successfully.
Yes, and even just the break, the distance. I mean, there's no, even, when you're working outside the home, you have 5 days and then you have 2 days to rest. And with motherhood, especially during a pandemic, there is no break. It's 24/7, which is ridiculous because you can't be on 24/7. You need some distance. And before, in regular life, your children had school, they had after school activities, they had friends over on the weekend, or whatever what the norm is.
Mhm.
And now it's all, when you're talking about being the center of the universe, it really all comes down to, hey mommy, I want to play a game. Come over here. Mommy, I'm bored. Mommy, it's just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's overwhelming, right? And it's constant, and it's incessant, and it's relentless.
Yes. Yes.
Again, motherhood writ large.
Yes. Yes. So let's talk about your new business, because I looked at your website and it was empowermentforresilience.com.
Mhm.
And you are the empowerment specialist, and you do one-on-one, um, and there was groups as well, I believe.
Yes, I
uh,
workshops and trainings and consultations. Yeah.
yeah, so talk about that a little bit, about your business.
Well, as I said, I'm really, really privileged to have been able to transition this work that I've been doing for 3 years into what I get to do every day of my life. And it's like my dream come true to work with women and mothers. And that's what I do. I believe that I filled a niche where I bring my critical feminist background, my many years in nonprofit and municipal government and academia into this sort of special mix of what I call sort of being an empowerment specialist, which is really about helping women and mothers to prioritize themselves in their lives and to recognize that they deserve the time and space that they afford to everyone else.
Nice, beautiful. You've just reached a milestone, 40,000 followers on Instagram.
Yes.
What did you do to celebrate?
Oh, what did I do to celebrate? Oh, I should have celebrated.
Oh yeah.
I think the pandemic, you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's a really good point. I have not yet celebrated. I will do. Thank you for reminding me that I should. Um, yeah, I'm really, 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 really happy that 40,000 people want to listen to what I have to say and engage with it, and it resonates with them, and it makes them feel less alone.
Yes. Yes, of course. Which was your goal?
It was my goal.
And so now you have a new group called Moms Say No. Can you talk about?
Yes, absolutely. So, because of what I'm seeing in Mommy Voices and in Empowerment for Resilience, I I got really, really frustrated with the fact that so many women and mothers are backed into a corner of not being able to say no, of feeling like they can't say no, because the expectations are just, as we talked about before, just like bonkers, right? Um, I have some moms as clients who are like, well, I have to go to work, or it's just like, come to work or quit. Like, you'll be fine. Like just really, really bad situations, and and particularly when it comes to this homeschool or this virtual schooling thing, I really feel like we need to have felt much more empowered to say no and say, this isn't going to work for us, right? Because it is impossible to do a full-time job and help your child with virtual schooling. It's impossible, right? And I really, really don't want this kind of unrealistic expectation piled on the shoulders of women. And so Moms Say No came out of just start saying no. Just say no. What can you say no to today? What can you say no to tomorrow? Just say it. Because I don't think we feel very empowered to say no. And that's my new crusade. I am on the no train.
That's awesome. Yeah. And it's good. It's a reminder, but it's also encouraging. It kind of makes saying no fun. Let's say no as a group. What will you say no to today? And then kind of encouraging other people to do it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people in the group are just really loving it. Like the no's that people come up with are just amazing. And the ways in which they say no, it's amazing, and it's very empowering, and it's very inspiring.
That's awesome. Um, so so now you're doing your empowerment business. How can people contact you? Because one of the things I want to bring about your business is that people can do it online, right? They don't, because of the pandemic, they don't have to put things off. They can contact you. So can you talk a bit about that, how you're available in different ways? And
Absolutely, thank you. So everything is online. All of my services are online via Zoom. So basically, in order to set up an appointment, you can go to www.empowermentforresilience.com, put your name in the contact me page, and I will get back to you right away in order to set up a one-on-one appointment. And I want to stress that what I do is very client centered, and it's very client directed, and so we address what you want to address, and I am the facilitator of the process, whatever that issue or decision or goal or whatever it is. I'm 100% in your corner, and I'm there to help you work through whatever issue it is. And it's really my honor and privilege to do that. So that's absolutely how you can contact me. The best way is probably through my website, or find me on Instagram and Facebook at Eating Her Young and at Empowerment for Resilience.
awesome. I have one more question. Will there be an Eating Her Young book?
Yeah.
I know I'm bugging you, but really, will there be? You have enough writing to publish. Are you planning to at some point publish your writing?
I am, yes. I don't know what the timeline on that is.
Yeah.
I know that something that I hope will be useful to women will come out of this in book format. But I don't know what that looks like right now. And I'm trying to be okay with that.
Yeah, sure. I'm okay with it too. I'm excited for it to come out. I think.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that for any reason. I love that you're encouraging me. I do. And I love that my followers encourage me too. It's funny. Well, writing a book it's an undertaking. So
yeah, huge.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I know you are a busy woman with a lot of hats and a lot of plates, and I appreciate that you took the time to speak with me today.
Well, ditto. Thank you so much for inviting me to do this. You're wonderful, and I can't thank you enough for supporting the women in our collective communities.